I promise you on this race review, we will talk about overtakes. There were definitely more than 4. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Bahrain GP review show. You've got Andy, and I am along with Cody tonight. And it's been a busy weekend for both of us, apparently. But Cody, you've had quite the weekend. So how you holding up despite being committed all over the place this weekend?
I'm doing great. I mean, for what it was a very busy weekend, but for what it's worth, it was a very fun weekend. I went to a wedding and everything that goes along with that. Some fairly heavy drinking. Went to the Blackhawks game, which was a blast. Went pizza tasting for another friend's wedding. So it's been jam-packed, but it's been good.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you've been having a good time. And we watched a race. We had F1 in our lives, so that's even better. So we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. I haven't quite kept up. I did go to some of the wedding stuff, obviously, with you. We saw each other on Friday. Congratulations again to your sister on tying the knot and all of what goes with that. And so, I mean, that's all really good. And we had a race to talk about. We both managed to wake up the next morning for qualifying and for all of that. So we've been keeping kind of in touch throughout the course of the weekend. So we're going to get into it in just a little bit. But if you have found us, welcome along. You can find us, as always, now on Blue Sky, on X, Instagram, occasionally on Discord, Reddit, and, of course, YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you like what you are seeing and you enjoy what you're hearing, you can either do the following. You can click the like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or you can click a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, specifically Apple Podcast or Spotify. It just helps our content come up a little bit quicker in search results. That's why everybody asks you to do it. You can email the show as always. I'm not going to give the old one. I'm going to give the new one, outlapf1@gmail.com. I know will work, and we'll get your comments to us. Outlap F1 Nation, thank you so much for your continued support, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Reagan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and, of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, you can see our anchor page. It does ask for a small donation of $1, $5, whatever you'd like to give if you are so inclined to do that. What does that do? Helps us keep our technology relevant, helps us keep this lovely recording platform and all those other things working the way that we all want it to. Helps us make the show a little bit better for you. All right, the particulars now done and out of the way. We'll start with our headlines of the day. Cody, you can go first on this one. What you got? All right, with the particulars now out of the way, we will start with our headlines of the day. Cody, what you got here?
My headline is, it's a dominant performance when you don't get any TV coverage, even when you cross the line. Oscar Piastri was in control of this race from start to finish after starting on pole. Never looked in doubt that he was going to win it. And because of that, didn't really ever see him on track. All the action was going on in other places. But I'll probably get into a little rant about this later, TV direction in general. But it did irk me a little bit that after not seeing Oscar for the entire time, they couldn't even bring themselves to show him cross the line for the win. He got relegated to the little teeny tiny window box when he crossed the line to take the win, which I thought was a little disgraceful. Is that all you get these days?
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll definitely talk about that. I thought the TV direction, especially at the end, there were some interesting choices and some interesting things that they were able to show and some interesting things that broke in the middle of the race, which for what's supposed to be the pinnacle, it's kind of surprising that as much broke as it did again in Bahrain. Strange. Very, very strange. But my headline of the day is, we see you, Oscar Piastri. We definitely see you, even if TV didn't. And there's a quote from one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans, when the backup quarterback, Ronnie Bass, comes in and he flips the guy over and he's standing there and he's just looking at the guy he flipped over. And he's just got this blank look on his face. And one of the guys on the Titans team goes, "Woo, that's a badass white boy right there." That's Oscar Piastri. He's just sitting there with that blank stare on his face. And that's a badass mother right there, man. Woohoo! Did he put a whooping on this field this weekend? Probably didn't get it enough justice in all of the broadcasts as to how good he actually really was. So we're going to talk about all of that. But before we do, we're going to flip back a bit and we're going to talk about the qualifying recap that happened on Saturday. Definitely was a few surprises for what, usually this is the track we test. You kind of almost expect it to be 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Not the case here. So we're going to start and we're going to get into that right now with. All right. So having an inauspicious start to their weekend, however, things would improve for them. Oliver Behrman in the Haas, that was surprising. Only good for P20. P19, I'm done saying nice things about this guy for a while, man. Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin, wow. Only the P19. P18 was Gabriel Bortoleto. P17, the struggle continues for Liam Lawson. I don't know. We're running out of things to say about it, really, but only P17 on the day for him. P16 was Nico Hulkenberg. P15, we're going to talk about this. It's Alex Albon in the Williams, however. He never gets a chance to set a Q2 lap time. Why? Because they couldn't delete Nico Hulkenberg's time for 45 freaking minutes. How does this happen in modern Formula One? Oh my God, we will talk about it. P14 was Esteban Ocon, who crashed in Q2, but lines up in front of Albon. Weird. P13, Fernando Alonso. P12 was Isaac Hadjar. P11, really good qualifying effort for this guy. Jack Doohan in the Alpine. Alpine rising from the dead here this weekend. P10, welcome to Q3 Yuki Tsunoda. Imagine what that looks like. See, this is the plan. How hard is this? P9, Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari, new floor, big upgrade package, not totally optimized for qualifying. They would show a little bit better in the race, however. P8 was Carlos Sainz. P7, talk about another guy on the struggle bus. Max Verstappen and the Red Bull did not have a very fun weekend. Almost as not fun weekend as his championship rival was Lando Norris, only managing P6 in what's supposed to be the quickest car on the grid. So that was a shocker. P5, star of qualifying for me, Pierre Gasly, Alpine, doing the Undertaker meme, out and back from the dead. Top 5 for them is a hell of a result there. P4, Kimi Antonelli, the Mercedes rookie, continuing to show well in qualifying. P3 was Charles Leclerc. P2, other than the pole sitter, I thought this guy pulled together one hell of a Q3 final lap. George Russell gave Oscar Piastri, who did take pole, everything he could handle. Russell's time of 1:30.009, but Oscar Piastri just enough to eke it out, a 1:29.841. All right. Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying. We got lots to talk about here.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a rough one for Red Bull as soon as they started the qualifying runs, and they were really nowhere to be found. I am happy that Yuki Tsunoda made it all the way to Q3 this time, but he was at the bottom of Q3. And then, Max Verstappen, usually the magic man in qualifying, even when, or really in any sense, when the car is not there. Even he couldn't pull it together this time. So all the way down in 7th, that had me really worried about how many points he was going to lose on Lando this weekend, until Lando kind of went and blew it himself and was only starting.
Lando said, "Here, take my beer, Max."
Mm-hmm. Yep. So at least that gave me a little bit of hope that, oh, well, okay, they're starting really close together. Maybe it won't be like, Lando gets the win and just like opens the gap huge. But there's also the sense in there that Oscar Piastri starting on pole, and that gives him a really good chance to close up the gap as well. I agree with you that George Russell had a hell of a Q3. I thought he had it there for a minute. I didn't think Oscar Piastri was going to be able to take it away, but he did. I guess last things I got here is Charles Leclerc performing much better in qualifying this time out than Lewis Hamilton. It's definitely been a rough start to his Ferrari career for Lewis, but still plenty of time for him to improve. And last one I got is Pierre Gasly. I don't know where that came from. Alpine up to this weekend was the only team that has not scored any points. which is to say that we weren't really expecting much from them. And yet here we have Pierre Gasly out-qualifying Lando Norris, out-qualifying Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. It's quite an amazing performance.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for the qualifying that you would have thought that would normally be at the test track, you almost expect it to be, team by team by two, and it just was not the case. First thing, I mean, George Russell, I don't know where that came from. I got the, oh, you've got to be kidding, it's going to happen again thought in my head, because I knew Lando's second Q3 lap was not going to go well when he was 0.6 adrift of even his teammate after the first turn. And I'm going to talk about Lando and his adventure in that first turn. Even going back to testing, it's consistent. It's consistently weird. Let's put it that way. But George Russell, who, comes out and gives, I think, Piastri everything he could handle and then some, and Piastri, who had to reach down really deep and pull it out when you thought, this was going to be an easy, walk in the park and through the first two qualifying sessions, no problem. But Piastri had to reach down deep and pull it out, and he's lucky he did, because the field all decided to come crashing down on him. So those were the positive surprises, I think, of qualifying. Pierre Gasly, another one. Like I said, doing the Undertaker meme, back from the dead. Just when you think that there's nothing left, and no, there's still something there. And both he and Jack Doohan just missing out on Q3, which was a big deal. Carlos Sainz getting the Williams into Q3, out qualifying his teammate, although we'll never know if he actually would have qualified his teammate, because Nico Hülkenberg finishes P16. He did participate in Q2, although he never gets a lap time, because apparently in the middle of the Q3 changeover between the first and second runs, we see Kimi Antonelli gets a lap time deleted. Lewis Hamilton, I think, had a lap time deleted. There was a couple of track limits things, and those are not uncommon. And then all of a sudden, the timing just takes Nico Hülkenberg from P13 and goes, bloop, drop to P16. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then the document comes out that says Nico Hülkenberg's lap has been deleted from Q1. Wait a minute. So wait a minute. So Albon should have been in Q2. We all know that lap time in qualifying evolves from one session to another. You get more confidence the more you do it. There's no reason to think that Albon should be back at even P15. How in 2025, with all of the technology that we have available, with this, you can get all 20 onboards and all this telemetry, and there's all these apps out there that track where these cars are every millisecond that they are out there from the minute they go in and out of the garages. Does this happen where we have to rely on a download of somebody else's car to finally figure out that, oh yeah, Nico Hülkenberg really did go 4 wheels off and should have his lap time deleted? Cody, I'm not expecting you to have an explanation, but God, if you are a Williams fan, you should be pissed, and I'm with you.
Yeah, certainly no explanation, but it is definitely frustrating, and it's especially for Albon. Like you said, he could have qualified much better had he gotten into just Q2, because who knows what kind of run he would have gotten. We saw that Carlos Sainz had a great time out in qualifying, so the room was definitely there to improve. And yes, we're going to see this a lot. This is kind of a theme through this weekend, that Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport, but there was a lot of things broken this weekend that seemed to put that title in a little bit of doubt.
Yeah. So before we close the loop on this, I will talk a little bit about Lando's adventure into the first turn. And if you even go back to testing, and I know not everybody watches every lap. I watched a lot of laps, especially at least on the timing. And the headline of the first 3 days of testing was McLaren were clearly quick. The race pace was outstanding. Qualifying pace was, but pretty good. What you weren't seeing was how many times, especially Lando, was struggling to put a complete lap together on his timing runs. Like, he would do an awesome timing run, and that would get the headline, and you shoot up the order, and then you'd all feel good. But it would be the 4 or 5 attempts that you didn't see, that didn't really count, where he was constantly locking up going into that first turn. The issue, as I see it, and why he was so distraught, and we'll talk about that too, after the qualifying session, was, in his eyes, he's doing the same thing every time he comes into that turn. And sometimes the car sticks, and he's got it, and he gets a great exit out of there, and it sets up the rest of his lap, and it's a great lap. And then there's other times where maybe he's over pushing it just that little bit, or something is happening where in his mind he's doing the same thing, and the car is not reacting the same way. And that's where the crisis of confidence is coming from. And you could see it even going all the way back to when they were running the first tests, that was kind of a thing, but it was always, it was covered over by the fact that, like, hey, he'd get a good result, and that's really all we cared about. So yeah, definitely on the back foot going into the race weekend. I mean, my comment was he gave himself a whole lot of work to do, because there were 4 drivers in front of him that were going to have something to say about the easy peasy McLaren 1-2 that a lot of people were predicting, myself included, coming into the weekend.
Yeah, we've definitely heard some commentary from Lando over the last few races, and seeing through his performances that that car is pretty difficult to drive right at the limit, and it has caused him to have some less than ideal performances in qualifying at times. And I think he's not quite fully confident with the car. It seems that Oscar, at least from this race, seems to be having a little bit more confidence lately. I got to wonder if the McLaren development has kind of pushed that car in the same ways that the Red Bull has been pushed, which is you are seeking as much speed and lap time as you can get out of that car at the cost of ease of driving.
Yep.
And now it's gotten to that point where to squeeze out every bit that car has, you have to really nail every turn, every lap, down to the fraction of an inch. And if you can't do that, then it's going to lose it on you.
Yeah. And just to kind of give a comparison, because I do watch a lot of both of Lando and Oscar's onboards. I thought Oscar did a great job, especially in the first turn, of being really smooth on the steering wheel. What Lando's always trying to do, and again, it's a driving style thing, Max tries to do this. Max gets away with this a ton. Both of them actually have very similar driving styles. And this is kind of where sometimes I think when Lando says, well, yeah, Max, if you were driving the McLaren, I don't know that you'd necessarily drive away any more than we could, because you and I want to do the same stuff. Lando's trying to throw it into the corner. And I mean, throw it, where like it's a hard steer, and the first part of the corner is where he's going to make the time up. Oscar's getting the lap time by doing kind of it's the classic versus a V versus an S going through a corner. Lando's a V guy. He wants to hit that thing on the nose and break as late as kind of possible, i.e. kind of what Lewis does. And Max wants to do the same thing. That really pointy, sharp front end is what enables those front tires to dig in. And when Max is on it, that's what he's trying to do. Oscar is the other way around, where he's waiting for the car. The car kind of, when it grips up, he's getting the better exits. So you see this amazing contrast in driving styles. 2 guys on the same team in the same equipment, vastly different driving styles, and you're seeing the differences right now between the 2 of them. So it was kind of a fascinating watch when they laid the things side by side. I'm like, wow, this really does show the difference between the 2 of them. All right. Any other thoughts on qualifying before we flip over to the race on Sunday?
No, just that I'm going to be a little sad during the race part, because didn't really get a whole lot better from qualifying for my favorite driver.
Look, I'm gonna buck you up a little bit when we get to them, because I even texted you, because I was like, he's still there. This is a bad weekend, and that's all it is. Like, damn, like it's only gonna go up from here. I have a funny feeling, but we will start with our back markers, and the curse of the skid plank wear has come up again. We've had a third or a second disqualification for this of the season. Nico Hulkenberg ran afoul of the plank wear rule. Was half a millimeter in 3 different spots below where the regulations say you were. That's a no-no, and he was kicked out, so he was never even there. He gets the dreaded DSQ. Carlos Sainz, who had the good qualifying, only able to get, unfortunately, the dreaded DNF. We'll talk about a little bit what happened to him. Gabriel Bortoleto, the first classified runner, comes home P18. P17 was Lance Stroll. P16, Liam Lawson. P15 was Fernando Alonso. P14, better, but probably not where they really want him. Still is Jack Doohan in the Alpine. And P13 was Isaac Hadjar. This was, I think, really the first true struggle bus, I think, for the Racing Bulls team all season. So if you were in a Red Bull or a Racing Bull, I don't think it mattered. You could have put whoever you wanted in whatever car. I don't think they liked the way this track treated them. Cody, thoughts here in the back markers?
And Liam Lawson is just continuing to have a lot of struggles in his first full rookie season. You know, he came into this race, he didn't qualify very well at all, way down in 17th, trying to do what he can during the race. But he managed to rack up a couple penalties in this race for collisions. First, he had a 5-second penalty for colliding with Lance Stroll. I guess that happened under the safety car. And, you know, that'll be it. You know, it was fairly early in the morning for me during a busy weekend, so I don't remember exactly what happened when, but I don't seem to remember that they even showed that on the broadcast.
No, they weren't doing a great job of catching up with all the stewarding stuff.
I was very confused because they gave him a 5-second penalty, and then, if I remember correctly, they showed his collision with what was it? Nico Hulkenberg, I believe. They showed that on the broadcast, and it wasn't very much at all. It was just like a little tap, and I guess maybe they judged it more harshly because Liam Lawson ended up getting by partly as a result of that tap. It was just a real little thing, and they say that is a 5-second penalty, and then a little later on it shows Liam Lawson also gets a 10-second penalty for collision. And I guess, yeah, the first penalty, the 5-second, was for a collision with Lance Stroll in the safety car, and then the 10-second penalty was for that collision with Nico Hulkenberg. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not really sure, at least for the one that they showed on TV, I'm not really sure that warranted a penalty because it was just a little tap. I mean, we see stuff like that happen all the time on track. It's just kind of part of what happens. If I remember correctly, Yuki Tsunoda ran into someone this race and ended up, taking a big chunk out of the car, and there's debris everywhere, and
caused the safety car.
Yep, and no penalties there. So yeah, I don't really understand the little boop that got Liam Lawson a penalty, but apparently that's what the stewards thought. So he ended up getting a total of 15 seconds in penalties for collisions in this race, which just did nothing to help him. So he is, finishing way back there in a race where 2 drivers didn't count. So, please, Mr. Lawson, it's time to turn it around, or else your career in F1 could be very short.
I'm getting Logan Sargent vibes.
But I don't want that because
I don't want that either.
Liam Lawson at least was promising. Like, I don't think we ever really had that much hope for Logan Sargent.
I'm getting those types of vibes the more I look at the results so far. And, I can only imagine what a kick in the teeth it is to be given your dream drive or what you're aspiring to get to. You get to it, and for 2 races you have it, and then it gets like yanked out from under you. I was not expecting him to come in and just do gangbusters, but I wasn't expecting this either. I figured maybe he's in the minor part of the points. If he's in P9 or P10, that's really good. Unfortunately, that's where the top team was this weekend, but, for majority of the running. But, and maybe this is just a one-track thing. I don't know. It feels, I'm getting a lot of weird vibes, and none of it feels very good right now in Liam Lawson camp. And I sure hope it changes because, this is a guy who absolutely in New Zealand, dominated the fracas, was doing really good in F2, coming up the ladder, should have done everything that was asked of him. And to have this kind of happen, it's horribly unfortunate. And I just hope it doesn't end up being, I hope it doesn't be, I'm getting Logan Sargent vibes. You know what I'm also getting? I'm also getting Danny Kvyat vibes too. And that's also scary.
Daniel Kvyat, though, was actually pretty successful.
Right.
Maybe not so much in the Red Bull, but he got podiums. It was kind of a surprise when he got kicked out.
No, it was just kind of the way that they've kind of just discarded.
Yeah, just kind of you're not here anymore. You're relegated to the lower team. And
yeah,
it's I was hoping that he would go into the Racing Bulls and he would turn himself around and have much better performances and at least put himself in a place to stick around. But so far he's getting beat by Isaac Hadjar, who is really, really a rookie.
Yeah.
Who didn't even start the first race. So it doesn't really speak very well.
Yeah. And the other thing for a lot of these, especially anybody who's struggling right now, with 5 races in 6 weeks, there's no time to go back to base to work in the simulator. There's no chance to work it out, work on the kinks. You can't do the being the first one in and the last guy out routine. You don't have the time because you're literally just going from circuit to circuit right now. I mean, they're going to pack up everything and they're going to move down to Saudi Arabia. There's no time for real debriefs. There's no time. I mean, I'm sure these teams have upgrade packages that are coming, but those things are already set in motion long before they get here. So the chance to try to work out the kinks is kind of limited to your free practices. It's really about all they're going to get. So it's something we'll keep an eye on. Like I said, I'm still rooting for him. I don't think he is not. I'm not throwing away, a career here, but I'm getting vibes, and I don't know that I like the vibes that I'm seeing. All right, so we'll move into the midfield, and Alex Albon did a decent job. I think he got kind of screwed over because he never got to see where he could have qualified, but he manages to come home in P12. P11, this was a bit of a shocker, struggling late. Kimi Antonelli, so out of the points, I think, for the first time all season. P10, you got to give these guys some credit, man. Haas Ferrari are doing it with smoke and mirrors, and I don't quite get it, but here they are again. P10 for Ollie Behrman after starting last on the grid. That's significant. P9, Yuki Tsunoda. Hey, look, Red Bull double points for the first time all season, so progress in that regard. So it's a start. It's a start. Let's give him credit. So he does come home in the points this weekend. P8, Esteban Ocon, after crashing out heavily in Q2 on Saturday, rallies all the way to come back home in P8. Again, smoke and mirrors, nondescript. I didn't even know he was there until I looked at this and I said, oh my God, Haas not only got 1 point, but 2 cars in the points. So great job for that team, especially after the first weekend of the season, man. So we're definitely kudos to them. P7, Alpine have points. Alpine have good points now. Pierre Gasly comes home in P7, making that great qualifying form, lasting throughout the race, probably where he deserved to finish, I think probably on pure pace. So good job for Alpine getting off the schneid there. 4 races in, all teams now have points. So look at that. P6, like I said, if this is a bad weekend for him, I hate to see what a really good one is because Max Verstappen still manages to come home in P6. We'll talk about his adventures and why, but he's still there. He's only 8 points off the championship lead despite all of this. So it's kind of weird how the math is mathing, but here we are. P5 was Lewis Hamilton. Much better race on Sunday than his qualifying would show. I think the upgrades that Ferrari have brought definitely helped out a lot with the race pace issues that they were having. They were a lot more competitive, especially in head-to-head against Lando and the McLarens. So we'll talk about that. P4, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, had a shot at the podium, faded a little late. A odd strategy call we'll talk about everybody was hating on the hard tire. Lewis Hamilton definitely was hating on the hard tire. And yet Ferrari decided to choose to put both drivers on the hard tire late. Did it maybe cost them a podium because they looked pretty racy, I thought, throughout the course of the weekend. But Cody, thoughts here in the midfield?
All right, so in a lot of ways, this was the no good, very bad day for Max Verstappen. And like you said, despite everything that happened, he still came in P6. So, okay points. It is not the worst case scenario of no points or not finishing or something like that. But the day definitely had its frustrations, and they were many.
Yeah.
So remember how I was telling you I had some, at least warm, fuzzy feelings over the fact that Max was starting just behind Lando? Well, those warm fuzzies went away really quick because at the start, Lando went way forward and Max went a little backwards. So not a great start there. Didn't seem to be doing too bad on the soft tires in the beginning, but wasn't really making many inroads either. He comes in to the pits, switches over to hard tires, and this is one of the technical difficulties that we saw this weekend. For whatever reason, the Red Bull team's little go light that turns green when the driver is, when the team's telling the driver to go, that they're good to go, wasn't ever turning green. So they dropped the car, and he's just sitting there for a couple seconds before they're finally like, what the hell, get going. And he did. So he lost a couple seconds there. And I believe it was at this point that he came out, probably because of that slow part of the pit stop. He comes out behind Esteban Ocon and could not get around him. And that doesn't look good if you're driving the Red Bull, which is supposed to be like one of the top performing teams, and you can't pass Haas, Now, Esteban Ocon had pitted really early. He took on medium tires, so he had a grippier compound of tires to try to keep Max at bay. But yeah, the Red Bull was struggling really hard on the hard tires, as a lot of drivers were, it seemed, throughout the race. But Max was struggling so much that he could not get around Esteban Ocon, which was damaging his race. I believe it was also damaging Kimi Antonelli's race, who I believe was also stuck behind Max at this point. So they were kind of stuck in this train. Did get a little bit of a reprieve by the safety car, which I was originally frustrated by because that safety car came like 6 laps or something like that.
6 laps after the second pit stop. And both the pit stops were ugly times. One of them was 5 seconds, one was 6.
Yeah, so that second pit stop was really frustrating to watch too, because they bring him into the pits to put him on the mediums, and one of the tires doesn't come off the car, and so that slows him down. And I'm just sitting here going, "Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me!" He gets out, yeah, as you said, he ended up getting the benefit of the safety car because, despite the fact that he didn't get the cheap pit stop, that the safety car came 6 laps after his second pit stop. So that's why I was frustrated, because it's like, oh man, he just pitted. He's not going to get that benefit. But it did at least close the field back up, which gave him something to work with on his pretty fresh medium tires. And yeah, despite his struggles, he did end up getting a last lap pass on Pierre Gasly to take 6th place, which, oh, by the way, more technical difficulties. We never got to see it during the race.
You got to see it. You just got to see it after
the race was over.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was all of this, like, the shots, like the Oscar Piastri winning shot and the Max Verstappen overtake was all kind of in the transition after the cool down room, but before the podium. And it was like, who is directing this? It's like, is somebody just, I didn't get it. Like, come on, man. Like, for what you did see and what you did show versus what actually happened that actually finished, it was an odd choice. Let's just put it that way.
The Gasly one was the pass on Gasly was frustrating. It was made even more frustrating by the fact that they weren't showing really live timings, so they didn't even know that it happened until they crossed the line when it updated the timing thing, because they're not showing it, they're just kind of talking about it, and then it just all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, he did it.
We're going to talk about the timing pylon and what happened to that. And we can
that'll probably be for the podium, because that is where that happened. But the TV direction in this one was lacking, to be sure. A note about the other Red Bull, though. Yuki Tsunoda does finish in the points. First time that he's done that in the Red Bull, which is great for him. Obviously, 9th place is a little further back than you'd be hoping to finish in what's supposed to be a top performing car, but he did do it. And this is, you were saying first points for that second Red Bull all season so far. It's even worse than that. These are the first points for the second Red Bull car since Las Vegas of
Oh my
last year.
God.
That's how bad it is.
Oh.
So,
Well, you got to
but
start
he
somewhere,
broke the
dang
duck
it.
or broke the duck. Yeah, he managed to make it work. So good on Yuki for that.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that, like, in all seriousness, I want to see Yuki embrace the opportunity that he's been given and be able to get something out of that car that will help Red Bull's prospects for sure. Did want to touch a little bit on the Ferraris. As I said before, I thought their race pace was a heck of a lot better than what they were showing in qualifying. Charles Leclerc turned out to be the proverbial thorn in the side of one Lando Norris throughout most of the race, and doing it on pure pace and doing it with some, I thought, some really good racecraft, and kind of taking advantage of if there are bugs in the McLaren where the bugs were. And I thought, it was hard, good, clean racing. Didn't think anything was out of line with either of it. However, Lando does eventually get past Leclerc to retake third after losing third earlier on in the race. So Leclerc, a very respectable P4, and Hamilton, a very respectable P5. If Ferrari are starting to figure out their car and they can now get the setup right and all of that, and they did not have any plank wear issues tonight, so they are all legal. So if they can figure that out, that's a good thing for that team, because they've been dealing with their own issues internally for the last couple rounds. So, all right, so we will now turn into that podium. P3 was the aforementioned Lando Norris, who had quite the adventurous day, up and down. I think is probably the way. It's like it's a heart monitor, man. It's either really up or it's really down, and sometimes it's up when it's down, and he's up when he's down. He's all over the place this race, man. It was very stressful watch for me. P2, not as stressful, however, as I'm sure whatever the hell George Russell was dealing with in his car, because his car kept wanting to die. And different things on his car kept breaking, and he's pushing buttons, and buttons are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, and they're defaulting some settings, and they're turning on other settings, and he's fucking with the timing, and his transponder died, and just I don't know what happened to George Russell's car. I don't know if somebody was doing the old, the Cars Act, where that radiation ray that was trying to hit the car. Whatever it is didn't work, because he manages to pull off. And now this was actually really good for him. 24 laps on a set of soft tires at the end of the race that nobody thought he was going to be able to do, and he made it stick. Good on you, George. That dude can manage a set of tires. I got no doubt about that. But in P1, by the way, all of that, 15 seconds adrift of the guy who nobody saw, because after turn one, he gone. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren is smooth as you like, no issues, other than the only problem for him, his drinks bottle was not functioning and he needed some water at the end of the race, which he was happy to take. But yeah, smooth as you like, easy peasy, yup and easy. Oscar Piastri, man, that's about, I think over the course of a weekend, that's about as good of a weekend as he's had in F1, man. Woo!
Yeah, he was linked in, got the pole, and as you said, took the lead right out of the start and was just gone up the road, opening up a little bit of a gap, opened a gap up again after the safety car. He was in control of it the entire time. He's looking much stronger than he did last year up against Lando Norris. He is now the first driver this year to get multiple race wins. So that's looking great for him. He's, with this win, only a couple points adrift of Lando Norris in the driver's standings. So things are looking up for Oscar Piastri. I personally was very impressed with George Russell's performance this race, because as you said, he had things breaking plenty on his car. There's a point in the race where I think it was actually during the safety car, his position on the timing tower just falls down to the bottom, and you're kind of wondering, like, oh my god, did he spin out? Did his car die? What's going on? And the broadcaster's like, no, we assure you, he is still up there. We promise. Pops back up, goes away again, and then they ended up pretty much doing the timing a weird way for the rest of the race, because the fact that Russell's transponder apparently died kept making him just fall down to the bottom of the tower. And from what you were seeing on timing, The timing tower was just kind of on the fritz after that anyway.
Oh, yeah. It felt like there was a bug in it. It really did, because like there were other parts of it that were still working and trying to work, and then with the solution that they came up with, and I guess it's as good a solution as you can come up with. But on the timing, especially if you're looking at it from the segment viewing, like I always do, if you see a one that shows up red and it'll usually say stop, that usually means the car has stopped or is not moving somewhere. And that's what it looked like it had happened. But he would fall down and then he'd come right back up. And that's happened a few times, when the thing drops off for a minute. But it just kept happening, and it was clear that it was consistent. And so anybody who was racing anywhere around George Russell did not have an accurate read on the gap to George Russell. Because at one point, I think like even Martin Brundle on the broadcast was saying, wow, he's keeping really up with Oscar Piastri. Well, no, he wasn't. He was losing almost a half second a lap there at the end. But the timing, because it was frozen, kept saying he was only 1 point something seconds away. And then because Russell's not getting the timing data, his DRS isn't working because he can't use it because the beeps aren't functioning. So they're telling him in the car, you got to default it. And then when Leclerc got up to Russell, they had to tell Leclerc to default the DRS. And then when Lando got up to Russell at the end, they had to tell Lando to default the DRS. So this one thing that broke like 5 people's races, and everybody was running kind of slightly compromised at the end. It's amazing. Like, it's kind of weird that they didn't almost bring him in. I mean, it would have been a shitty call. I'm glad they didn't do it with some sort of a meatball flag or something like that. But the way that it affected everybody else, I'd never seen anything like that before. So it's very strange.
That part was really strange. And it was too bad that it was in some ways compromising other drivers' races, the issue with his car, because like as you said, with the timing being gone, everyone who was racing in the vicinity of George Russell needed to override their DRS controls, because they pretty much needed to wait for their team to tell them, okay, you were within a second at the DRS detection zone. You're okay to use it, because it wasn't going to be automatic. So that affected George Russell himself. And that affected Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris when they were getting within DRS. You have to activate it, at the appropriate spot,
right,
which is something that we ran into an issue with. I guess both George Russell and Charles Leclerc ended up activating their DRS systems when they weren't supposed to. They ended up not getting penalized for it, and I think the stewards were pretty generous on this, because for Charles Leclerc, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, he can't tell, and it's not something that he can control. It's not something that's broken on his car. George Russell claims that he activated the DRS on his car using the radio button, which was not good. Also, he did
the equivalent of doing the turn signal in your windshield wipers go.
Yes, it was giving me feelings of Lando Norris's race in China, where it's like, oh, his transponder stopped working. That kind of sucks, but you think it's not such a big deal. And then it's like, oh yeah, my DRS opened when I pushed the radio button. And then a little bit later, you've got the team saying, we just want to let you know your dash might go away, but just bring it home. Just keep driving. So the electronics were definitely getting progressively worse.
His engineer, I got to give credit, because to say that deadpan in the voice that he did, as calm as he did, that's some engineering right there, man. That's some getting it home and getting it done. And George Russell brings it home. I can only imagine being in the moment, having to relay a message like that. George, your dash may just die. It's fine, but keep driving. Please don't crash, even though everything you rely on is gone. But it'll come back. And Lando had a weird one too, where they said, I don't forget what the setting was. There was something they were defaulting. It was kind of in the middle of this, where they said, what's going to happen is the radio is going to die out for 5 seconds. And then Lando's engineer, Will Joseph, comes back and goes, radio check, and Lando doesn't say anything. So they waited another 30 seconds, and he goes, radio check. Then he said he could hear him. I'm like, oh, good Lord, what the hell is going on? This is also the circuit where all the lights went out during the tests, and the power grid got weird, and we had to learn how to repower up a racetrack. So I don't know what radio wave things were going on, but something that needs to get better, for sure, because part of the whole thing is I rely on that timing screen. That is my bread and butter, is to tell me what's actually going on. And when I don't have it, it was a very frustrating. I'm like, I literally don't know where anybody is right now, because I cannot see who's closing on whom and where they are. And then they get to the last lap and the onboard catches up, and Lando's pulling that move on George, and I go, whoa, where did that come from? Because I did not see that coming at all. And I was like, that was close and scary. It could have taken both of them out right there. And you never knew, luckily, all good. But I mean, Lando had himself a very up and down day. So let's start with the start, which I thought for once was actually really good. In fact, it was too good. He gets a 5-second penalty for not being in proper position at the start. His tire he had driven 1-2 millimeters or whatever it was away from the contact patch. That is an automatic slam dunk penalty. After seeing it myself, I can only agree with it because it's a penalty. So he gets a 5-second penalty, which he then served at his first pit stop, was able to clear it. So that put him back. So him, Russell, Leclerc, and Hamilton, to a certain extent, were all kind of having the battle for P3. At one point, Norris was all the way down in P5, especially after the safety car. Tries to put a move on Leclerc. Leclerc blocks him off. Hamilton goes around the outside at the resumption of green flag racing, and now Lando's in 5th. Gets around Hamilton right away. He was told by his team to give the position back as he went 4 wheels off the racetrack. I agree with that call too. Probably would have been a penalty had he not done that. So gives the position back to Lewis, goes back to work, gets back around Lewis, and then Leclerc. The ding-dong with Leclerc took a while. And like I said, if this is Ferrari's race pace getting better, then that's encouraging, because it wasn't like hot knife through butter by any stretch. Lando had to work for it. Eventually does get Leclerc, because I think kind of the tire offset and the fact that he was on a grippier set of medium tires at the end, does get it done. Did get right onto George's gearbox at the end, but not unable to pull off that move, as George was getting his kind of role reverse from China, where Russell was closing on Lando. Here was Lando closing on Russell, and George gets the car that was having ailments home in front in P2. So yeah, very up and down day for Lando. He seems still very confused as to the inputs on the car, what he's putting into it. I think he's just happy to be done with Bahrain. Bahrain has kind of always been his kryptonite. This is his best finish ever, P3. His best finish up to this point was 6th.
I mean, for getting a P3 out of the weekend and, getting the podium, he was really kind of a bummer this weekend, because he was, especially after qualifying, he was really beating himself up. And Lando has done that quite a bit in the past. He has shown that he is his harshest critic. But yeah, he seemed like he had no wind in his sails after qualifying. He was like, oh man, like Oscar Piastri is just going to go out there and lap the whole field, and I've got all this work to do, and it's all my fault. The team put together this great car for me, and I just went out there and messed it up. And then even after the race, he had a good recovery. I mean, there's a pretty good chance that with how Oscar was doing, that even if Lando had started better, he might have still only gotten P2. The 1-2 is about the best you could hope for. He came really close to that, and he still seemed pretty disappointed with himself. So he's finished on the podium in every Grand Prix so far this year. It's like you can only beat yourself up so much. Like,
right. It's like you want to tell him, like, dude, you did come home 3rd. That's pretty damn good. There's 17 other guys who would love to be in P3, and you're there. So, like, I get it. I'm sure he's already crafted his own social media mob that's going to come and get him. And there's plenty out there if that's what you want to do. But you almost wanted to just say, come on, you're better than this.
Look up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on, dude, you're going to be fine.
You are still the leader in the driver's standings.
You got out of here. Like I said, it was both him and Max, despite not having great weekends for both themselves, are still right there in the freaking drivers. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. It's still a fight. There's going to be a lot of other tracks that are going to suit Lando a lot better. I think they're going to one that might just do that, but we'll see how this goes. But unfortunately, there's no rest for the weary, because we got to turn around and go right at it again. It's a triple header. This is what we get. But hot damn. I don't know really what else to say about Oscar Piastri, but other than bye.
Yeah.
I mean, no real issues that I could see. They have found this is the reason why he was as sought after as he was. You're seeing that right now. He has fixed in the course of about 4 race weekends a lot of the things that were plaguing him over the course of these race weekends, because he would always be the one that was having the trouble with practice. He'd have a lot of hard time dialing the car in. Sometimes he'd get it together for qualifying, sometimes he couldn't. And then a race pace, he'd be on it for a while, then it would fade. None of that is happening this year in any of the races. If it wasn't for the bad luck of hitting the brain patch in Australia, he's leading the championship, and by a probably pretty wide margin right now, because he has erased a 20-point gap that he had after the first race in 3 races. So that's momentum. He is on it, and definitely looks very fierce at the moment for sure. All right. Well, we're going to leave this here. That's our take on the Bahrain GP. We're going to take a quick break. We will re-rack. We will come back. We will tell you what all of the latest standings are in the drivers and in the constructors, and then we'll open it up to your comments on the weekend, the fan email segment. We've got some bangers in here. As always, we thank you so much to everybody who contributes to this. We'll hand out some awards. We'll talk a little bit about predictions. We both thought Lando was going to have a good weekend. He didn't, and that kind of really screwed things up. But there was a winner. There is a clear winner of the predictions. We will talk about it when we get there. So come on back, and we'll get into it. Welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 9 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2025 Bahrain GP review show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up talking about the Oscar Piastri victory at the Bahrain International Circuit. First time McLaren has ever won at the Bahrain Circuit, and from 2023 to now, where they were P16 and P15 or something like that, when it was Lando and Ricardo there, to winning on a pole. That's some sort of progress. So hot damn. I keep telling everybody, you have to embrace the roller coaster. Yeah, they're stressful watches, but you got to embrace it, because you don't know when it's going to fade away. So I'm riding it just along with everybody else at this point. But all right, so let's take a look at where the drivers' standings show up after this round, and we'll take a look at where the team standings are as well. Cody, if you take the drivers, I will handle the teams.
All right. Lando Norris, with his 3rd place finish, manages to hold on to the lead in the drivers' standings. So he is in first, with McLaren at 77 points. However, hot on his heels now is his teammate Oscar Piastri, who with this win moves up to 2nd in the driver's standings. He is at 74 points. He is only 3 points off of his teammate now. So McLaren 1-2 in the driver's standings for the moment. Not too far off from them both, though, is still Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. He's in 3rd place now at 69 points, so only 5 points off of Piastri, and 8 points off of Lando Norris. So still in the hunt. George Russell catching up as well. He has been very consistent so far this season. I think he's finished in the top 4 every race so far. So George Russell, 4th place with Mercedes at 63 points. And then we have a pretty good gap down to Charles Leclerc, partly caused by that disqualification that he and Lewis Hamilton had in China, but still running in 5th place for Ferrari at 32 points. Right behind him is Kimi Antonelli in 6th place in the other Mercedes at 30 points. So pretty tight packed here, even outside of those top 4. And just a few points down from him is Lewis Hamilton in the other Ferrari. He's in 7th place with 25 points. 8th place, Alex Albon, who, despite not having any points this weekend, still had a great run in the first few races so far this season. 8th place in Williams for 18 points. 9th place, Esteban Ocon in the Haas. We have a Haas back in the top 10. Not even just 10th, but 9th. So Esteban Ocon having a great run of form here now after that really awful first race in Australia. He's in 9th place with 14 points. And then wrapping up the top 10, still Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin with 10 points. A little weird that he's still holding on to 10th despite having a couple of really poor races here the last couple. But yeah, he's still holding on to the top half of the drivers.
Yeah, two good and two not so good races for one Lance Stroll. But in the constructors in P1, they have opened up a gap. It is now 58 points. McLaren Mercedes in P1 with 151 points on the season. P2 checking in is the Mercedes Works team with 93 points on the season. P3, no longer just the Max Verstappen show. That is Red Bull Racing Powertrains. They check in with 71 points. P4 is Ferrari. They are up to 57 points based on effort this weekend. P5, smoke, mirrors, and any other tricks you want to give. Haas is in P5, man, and it's legit. They are on 20 points in the constructors. P6 is Williams on the strength of a lot of Alex Albon and a little bit of Carlos Sainz. They are up to 19 points. P7 is Aston Martin. On the strength of Lance Stroll, he's P10 in the drivers. That's where the 10 points are. And P8 is Red Bull Racing Bulls. They check in with 7 points. P9 is Alpine, no longer on the duck. They move up 1 place in the constructors from 10th to 9th on the strength of Pierre Gasly's finish. They are up to 6 points, tied but on countback with Kick Sauber Ferrari on the strength of the Nico Hulkenberg effort in Melbourne, also on 6 points. So that's at least, like I said, 4 races in, all teams now have points. So look at that. All right, so enough. You have heard our takes on what we thought we saw this weekend in the Bahrain GP. It's now time for the fan email segment and for us to react to your takes on what you saw this weekend. These are in the order in which I got them, as I was told to make sure to put them in the order in which I got them. I did timestamp these, so this is accurate. So we will start with the Formula, who won the race this time. He even mentioned it. He goes, if you ain't first, you're last. Well, you're first this time. Cody, what do we got here?
All right. Our first fan email comes from the Formula, and he says, Lando is my favorite driver, but Oscar will win a championship before he does. So, wow, big takes right out of the gate here. He's just so much more consistent and has more of a ruthless and focused demeanor, in my opinion. Regardless, we have one hell of a driver lineup. What in the hell is going on with Aston Martin and Kick Sauber? They are absolutely horrendous right now. I hate seeing multiple teams bringing absolute boats to these races. It's irritating. In my heart of hearts, I want F1 to achieve an even tighter field, similar to Indy. I know we've made a lot of progress over recent years, but the top to bottom gap is still too wide. If I beat Rachel or Dave, ensure that they know if you ain't first, you're last. And Oscar outright stating there will be a party for his win and he won't be attending it is the most Oscar thing I've ever heard. That's fantastic. I didn't hear that part, but yeah, it does sound like ice cold Oscar Piastri for sure. Now, as far as the Oscar will win a championship before Lando does, gotta say, I'm kind of a similar opinion. I was kind of that opinion even going into this season. And that isn't to say that Lando isn't a good driver. Lando is a fantastic driver, and he has been the number one at McLaren for a long time now, and he's really getting his time to shine, starting with last season, now that McLaren has actually given him a car to show what he's capable of. But he's really harsh on himself, and his performances can be a little up and down. And it does seem like when he gets into a rut, the issues continue. Whereas, we've said this before, and you said it here, that Oscar is ruthless and focused and ice cold and doesn't seem to get bothered by anything. And now that he is coming to grips with the car and able to keep up with Lando in qualifying performances and race pace, he is really showing that he's going to bring the fight to Lando. And if it comes down to consistency, who can more often than not squeeze everything out of this car, I do think that Oscar is more capable of that.
It's a fair point, and it's a fair critique, and it's something that, I mean, the data, if you look at it, just clearly shows it. I've always said with Lando, you're going to have the high highs and the low lows, and the fact of the matter is the low lows should not be this low. Dude, it was sixth place. It's not the end of the world. You're in a ridiculously quick car, and if it wasn't for the jump start, my actual reaction when he got the start, I'm like, oh, he's in P3. Oh, good. Now he can get out of his own head. And then then I hear the thing about the 5 second. I'm like, oh, God damn it. Because we're going to go right back down to where we started. And it was like, geez, he finally nailed the start. The whole thing, that all we've heard about, whenever he's lined up in pole position, is he gets these terrible starts. And that just wasn't the case here today. He got a great start, and he made a couple of really nice moves and was able to do it. The two things that I will continually harp on Lando for: one, you got to buck up. You can't be that low. And if you are that low, you got to play a little bit of poker, simply because it will protect you in the long run. You don't want people always looking at your race starts like what Max Verstappen is doing. That's why he saw that you were out of position, because it's a thing. People are looking at it because it's become a thing. So the better thing, and I get it both ways. It's annoying to me that some of the fans are going, well, you're being too honest and too brutal on yourself. But at the same time, we want drivers to not be giving corporate answers all the time. So which is it? So you kind of got to pick one. Now, I think this was way too extreme. I didn't think he needed to be as down as he was on himself. And he does have a tendency to rally. But I mean, right now, Oscar is just the flat line. I'm getting a lot of Mika Hakkinen vibes from Oscar Piastri right now, and that's a scary thing, because Mika was just that same type of thing, just cold, calculated, just do what I got to do in the race. And I'll celebrate afterward, and I'll take the shot of liquor at the end, and you'll never watch me do it, type of thing. So, and Oscar doesn't look like he even can drink or would want to drink at this point. I think he just wanted to go back to sleep, honestly, at the end of the race. So there you go. But I can see that critique. I honestly can see that critique. And I'm certainly not giving up on Lando by any stretch of the imagination. I've been with this guy since he started. But I also know he's got to protect himself by, even if he just answers the questions and says, look, I just got to be better tomorrow, and I'm going to come back and try to rock it and see what we can do. That's all he would have had to say. And none of this is the big issue that it is. When he was so down and the sales were so out of wind, I'm like, dude, like his results are P1, P2, P2, P3. What are we upset about? Like, come on, man, give yourself a break.
There is a lot of season left. He is still leading. He's just got to, buck up and come back to it next race and show what he's got. I think it's going to really come down to the wire here.
They very well could.
Both very skilled.
I think you're going to find certain, like I said, the same thing between Max and Lando, or Red Bull and McLaren. You're going to see certain tracks where I think Oscar is going to be a lot better off at. He had the benefit of being here and testing, and I think he tends to work a little bit better on these tracks with resurfacing on it. He can kind of eke a little bit more out of the car right now. I would expect Lando to be good. Monaco, I expect Lando to be really good in places like Hungary, those types of places where it's hot and it's sticky and the traction isn't always as great, because I think that's where if he's got something in his cage, that's still it. I think he can still eke out a tire stint a little bit better right now than Oscar, but it's not by much. It's not by much by any stretch.
Now, on the Aston Martin kick Sauber suckitude, yes, they are really bad right now. Sauber was really bad last year, and Aston Martin has been on the downturn since, that great bit at the beginning of 2023. At least with those two teams, it makes sense to me. And you've got Aston Martin looking at the next year's regs already. They got Adrian Newey now in their design team. He's going to be working his magic. I'm sure he is almost entirely focused on next year's regulations. So here's hoping that they make a big turnaround going into next season. Kick Sauber, probably pretty much in the same boat. Next year is when they're going to formally become Audi. They're going to get everything that comes with that. So here's hoping that they're going to turn it around as well. It is irritating to see teams that suck, especially since there's only 10 of them right now. That said, Formula One has really kind of always been this way.
Yeah.
It is not a spec series. That IndyCar is a spec series. That's why the field is so tightly bunched together. You got 2 engines to choose from that are more or less the same performance, and everyone uses the same chassis. It's all about how you set up the car and everything that goes into that. That's not what Formula One is. That's not what it's ever been. It is the teams design the cars. You're always going to have better cars and worse cars. And we definitely have come a long way. I mean, all 10 of these teams have been on the grid for a long time now. I mean, the newest team is still Haas, I believe.
Yep.
And Haas is even been around since 2014, 15, 16?
Something like that, yeah.
So 10 years-ish. We used to have teams in Formula One that would just show up, be on the grid for a couple years, and then be bankrupt if they even made it a couple years.
Right.
There were teams that were supposed to be on the grid for the regulation switch during 2014 that I don't think ever even made it to the grid, like USF1 and stuff like that. So we definitely have come a long way. It is closing up. There's a good chance it's going to open right back up with the new regulations somewhat. But I don't think I ever wanted to get as tight as IndyCar, because if you have gotten the cars so close in performance that it is like a spec series, then at that point it's like, why are the teams even designing the cars? It may as well just be a spec series. Part of what I love about Formula One is the design work that goes into that, and having to understand and try to gently break the rules and how you can
push the limits of said rules. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Push the limits of the rules, design something that really suits a particular driver's style. I love how this series, you're combining driver talent with engineering talent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the technological aspect, you're always going to have teams that are going to struggle. And in a last year of a regulation, you're going to see it a little more amplified than you have. What we hadn't had up until now was the cost cap, which is kind of keeping everybody basically pretty together. And you've also had engine parity and engine reliability such that we've seen more people get disqualified this season than have engine failures. Let's just put it that way. So that's what, from where we've been to where we are. I mean, I can just think back to the first race I was ever at Coda, and we don't even talk about the 107% rule anymore. You used to have 2 teams in HRT and Marussia that were literally flirting with the 107% rule every qualifying, and it was a race of 4, and it was 45 seconds behind the race of the other 18. and you'd watch Narayan Karthikeyan and Karun Shandak literally, scream by, and they're like, where the hell? It doesn't look like they were going slow, but my God, they were going slow. So to go from that to teams, the other thing you don't hear about is teams in administration, which is a great thing too, because we haven't had to have the rescue plan. We haven't had to have lawyers come in like we did in 2015 and 2016 and start to take over the operations of Formula One teams. These are lawyers that have absolutely no idea what they're doing when it comes to trying to run a Formula One team. They're just trying to build up value so that they can sell it. And some of it worked and some of it didn't. So it's a give and take. I don't think we're going to, even with these new regs, I think you're going to see more field spread, but I don't think you're going to see the 107% rule have to come back into play or anything like that. The fact that the cost cap is here is bringing it. And I've always said, I think this is year 4 or 5. And I always said it was going to take 4 to 5 years of the hard cost cap to really start to see it. Now, what you're seeing is these teams with Aston Martin and Kick Sauber who have just decided to allocate their resources elsewhere. And that's a business decision that gets made. They could try to push development through in this season if they could and use their cost cap for it, but they don't want to because it's a law of diminishing return. I mean, yeah, it sucks to watch Fernando Alonso have to say his P14 was probably everything he could do. Thanks, team. This was the best we were ever going to possibly do. That's annoying. But at the same time, that's Formula One. You know, if you're and you got teams rising and falling. I mean, 3 years ago, McLaren were at the back. Aston Martin was almost on the podium at the same racetrack. No changes to this racetrack. Same set of regulations. 3 years down the road, one's up, one's way down. Who's to say that in 26 or 27 you don't have that exact same situation happen again?
Yeah, I am personally hoping that this reg change doesn't lead to the same fate for Red Bull as it did before. But I digress. Thank you very much, Mr. Formula, for your email.
Well, McLaren doesn't have a good history of first year in a new formula either. Look at 2009.
Oh, for which team?
For McLaren either. Look at 2009.
Oh, yeah.
That was bad. Look at
2015. In 2009.
Yeah, only after they all the teams got together and banned the double diffuser.
True.
But anyway.
All right. Our next one comes in from Rachel Fleming, and she says, well, that was far better than Japan. Lots of overtaking and interesting moments. Firstly, the joy of technology, the graphics and timing going wrong. Russell was 20th at one point when he was still in second. Red Bull's lights, George's transponder, and the DRS as well went along with that. Sometimes the old-fashioned methods work after all. A brilliant victory for Piastri. He was on it all weekend and looked unbeatable. First McLaren to win in Bahrain. Incredible that they had never won here before. Lando wasn't impressive, but the power of the McLaren still meant a podium. Let's hope he improves in Saudi. Double points for Red Bull. It's a miracle. And Gasly's result means that all teams have points this year. Great result for Haas. Spearman was impressive, and Ocon recovered from his big Saturday error. Alonso Watch finished ahead of Stroll. It's a dog of a car, though. Yes, it is. Sauber Watch, Lawson hit Bortoletto. I think it was actually Hulkenberg. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 80% sure. Which was very poor, but they had a little pace anyway. Oh, and now a probable disqualification for Nico. Audi can't come soon enough. Yeah, I don't know if Audi would have had too much to be able to improve on that disqualification. We've had Ferrari get disqualified for that same reason just a couple of races ago. So I don't think that's an Audi versus Sauber thing, but it does show that teams are trying to run these cars as low as possible to try to maximize that downforce and performance. And in trying to, get that maximum performance, they are pushing the limits sometimes a little too far for what the rules say you can do. Let's see here. What are some of the other really good points here? Yeah, we talked about the double points for Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda making that happen. And I personally think that if Liam Lawson had been doing what Yuki Tsunoda is doing right now, he would still win that seat, which goes to show you that you probably didn't need to be doing a whole lot. You just had to be there.
Yeah, there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and I think Yuki Tsunoda already actually looks better this weekend than he did last weekend. So let's hope that trend continues. I would actually disagree with the Lando wasn't impressive. I think he actually was quite impressive this weekend. He definitely had some mistakes, like the pit box error, and some of his passes didn't go quite as planned. But I don't think you can really discount how awesome his start was by the fact he started like a tiny bit forward in his box. I think he probably would have had just as awesome a start if he was like 2 inches further back. It does stink that he got the penalty out of it, but that was a monster of a start. Went from like 6th to 3rd, which was great. And we've kind of beat up Lando in the past over not being really good at the starts, and he really nailed this one. And he did fight back to third place, and he was just a hair away from second.
Yeah.
So I think he really did just about all that he could, considering where he qualified, which was, really just kind of a minor mistake. Anyway, the cars are getting really tight and close together, so little mistakes lead to big differences in position, especially in qualifying. So he's up against that right now, but I do think that he still had a pretty solid performance.
Yeah, and to Rachel's point about the Sauber watch that I know she always does, and the Formula had the comment about we got these teams kind of at the back. The thing you got to remember with Sauber is they're where Williams were like 2 years ago when Valls first came in. What Bonato and now Jonathan Wheatley's on the job and all of that, they are digging through the crap that they were left. And it takes a year or a year plus to dig through the crap. But they're also putting a lot of small good things in place. One of the things, and I didn't even realize it until I actually heard a snippet of radio from Gabriele Bortoleto. Gabriele Bortoleto, if you remember, was a McLaren Academy driver, and they obviously let him go to sign with Sauber. One of Lando Norris's co-race engineers, Jose, and I can't remember the last name right now, is now Bortoleto's race engineer at Keck Sauber. So Bortoleto, and it was interesting when I listened to this radio message, I went, hot damn, this sounds just like McLaren radio. Like, here's where your opportunities are. Here's, and it's the same cadence that, the bigger teams are using about where to find your lap time and what to do. That's how you build it slowly. It's not, you are not in a sport that you turn it on and it just, unfortunately, that it's just lights on. You got to build it up. So, yeah, I get, it's frustrating to watch Keck Sauber. It's frustrating to watch a guy like Bortoleto who's got a lot of talent be very raw. But he's just able to learn and how to be an F1 driver. Wouldn't Liam Lawson kill for that right about now, just to not have the spotlight on him and to just be able to learn and take feedback from his engineering team and give feedback on the car? So, yeah, it may be investing takes time. But I'm going to tell you, watch Keck Sauber in the next regulations, watch Williams in the next regulations, because I think those are two teams that are going to come out and maybe surprise people.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see how the order changes going into the regulations next year. Thank you, Rachel, for your email. Our last one comes in from Dave Doherty, and he says, "Hi, team. Wow, that was a pretty good race. Good racing. I thought Ocon and Gasly were amazing for the entire race. The last remaining laps with Norris versus Russell was traumatizing. I couldn't watch, but Georgie, boy, wow. He was amazing, and McLaren, they are the best of the best. Your thoughts on the strategies, on the tire life strategies specifically? Do you think the teams, that is all of the teams, had an idea on strategies since there were some struggles?" I thought it kind of made sense to me, but normally we see drivers all on the softs in qualifying, and then they do mediums or hards depending on what they're planning on doing during the race. And because of how hard the tire compounds here are, how hard the tire compounds are that we used in this race, I mean, the C3 is like still a pretty hard tire, and that was the softest available. So because of that, I was really amazed when I kicked on the TV and saw that the vast majority of the drivers were on the softs, because they could actually make them last for at least 10 laps before the performance started to drop off. I do think that a lot of teams probably ran into the issue that they didn't do a whole lot of testing maybe on the hard tires during practice. I don't think the C1 compound is one that comes up very often, because that is the hardest of the hard, man. Like, you need that when the track is like sandpaper and you want it to still last a little while. And so the combination of that tire not getting used a lot, there's not a lot of data. I don't think the teams really used it a whole lot in practice. So they maybe didn't really know what they were getting themselves into.
Right.
Red Bull really seemed like they didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and Ferrari either, because Max and Lewis Hamilton both had some stuff to say about how much they hated that hard tire. So I think that really factored into the strategies. They were just kind of taking a leap on it, thinking, well, this is the hardest tire compound, so it should last the longest, and it just kind of made the car not grip at all. I think that the teams that really benefited were the teams that could, let's see here, what were the teams that went medium in the beginning? I think there was somebody who
Ferrari
went
was on a medium, and then they went medium,
yeah, they
and
went
then
medium, and then they finished on
the hard.
Yeah, that worked better for Leclerc
Yeah.
than Hamilton, but I think that anyone who was using the hard was kind of screwed. Now, we did see something interesting that I think nobody was expecting, is that George Russell managed to make a set of soft tires last way longer than anyone was expecting. That goes back to the fact that the C3 is still a fairly hard tire. Makes you kind of wonder what might have happened if Ferrari decided, well, let's do medium, soft, and so if they could get anything out of that. But we could talk about what could have been all day long.
Yeah.
It does go to say, though, that yes, there were a lot of different tire strategies in this race, which I think is great, because tire strategy is one of the big strategy points in the race, and it does get a little boring on strategy when it's like, okay, it's a one stop and everyone's going to go medium hard or hard medium, depending on where they start, or even if it's like a two stopper, we're going to go medium hard, or hard medium, or some mix of that.
Yeah.
It is cool to see a race where we're actually seeing all three tire compounds make a meaningful appearance for a lot of drivers. So I thought that this race, as far as that goes, was actually quite fun.
Yeah, from a strategy standpoint, it was kind of fascinating to see, and it was also fascinating to see them all kind of coalesce kind of at the end, which is exactly what you're looking for. Multiple routes to still get to the same place. The normal playbook for this track is run the medium tire, go on a stint of hards. If you need to do a second stop, get another stint of hards. Clearly, what Pirelli has done with the C-Run tire and the C2 tire to a certain extent is they are definitely much more robust of a tire, and therefore you're seeing these guys not get the dag or the wear that you're used to. And it's throwing, I think, some of these teams for the loop, because the traditional paradigm just isn't there. So the fact that we saw teams start on the soft, I think the A strategy was probably soft, medium kind of at the end, and that's the teams that were successful. That's what they were running. When we get to awards, we'll talk a little bit about Ferrari and all that fun. And I'll just let Lewis Hamilton sum up the Ferrari thing there. But anyway, it was a fascinating race from a strategy standpoint. Certainly a lot more overtaking than what we saw in Suzuka. So it was nice to see, okay, F1 can F1. There's still there is still a problem with running in dirty air, but at least there was enough overtaking to where I think most fans would have been satisfied with that.
Yeah, gave me faith that you can still overtake, because it's been kind of hard to overtake in the last couple of races, especially Suzuka. And when we talked about how that seemed to be kind of a perfect storm of conditions that led to that. But now I have hope that we will actually see some good racing, and we're not just going to see everybody win from pole. Although I believe that is.
I was going to say that is 4 for 4 though. We are 4 for 4. That's the one negative of all this, is we have not seen an overtake for the lead yet.
Yeah, 5 for 5 really, if you count the sprint race.
That's true.
So we have not had a race won by the non-pole starter. So
the clean air is the high ground, man. And if you can get to that high ground and you nail the qualifying, you're certainly setting yourself up a lot better for your chances to take the win. All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody who contributed to the discussion. I thought this was always a great discussion, as we always do. Please continue to feel free to shoot us a question. You can shoot us a question for our previews if you want us to tackle that as well. We're happy to dig in to all this fun F1 stuff. It's why we do it. All right. So we will now transition into our awards. We will start with the rubbish. Cody, you've got some good candidates here. I've got a couple candidates here. Haven't lit up the FIA in a while, so but Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
Yeah, I really hate to say it, but I'm going to give my rubbish award to Red Bull, just in general, for the whole weekend. Bad qualifying, bad car, bad pit stops, bad hard tire usage. Can't even pass a Haas on track. It was pretty painful throughout this weekend, and I'm hoping that Red Bull, Max, and Yuki can just look at this and be, well, it was a rough one, but we came out of it with double points, decent points. Let's just move on to the next one and keep working on that car.
Well, Max has had some epic laps around Saudi Arabia, so that is always a place where I think that suits him a lot better. Bahrain is a very specific track with very specific characteristics, so I don't take it as gospel, despite the fact that we test here. I always have to tell myself that. Don't take this one as gospel. There's a lot of other tracks out there. So if you struggled here, it's not necessarily the end of the world. But my rubbish award goes out to the FIA.
Hey, we're back here.
Yeah, and we're back here. We can't even get the basics right. Williams has every right to sue, in my opinion, and they're not going to, but they have every right to be really, really pissed because Alex Albon, I would have been beside myself if had I seen that. I literally would have been running into there and saying, really, just let me go make a lap by myself and give me 2 minutes and see what I could do, and let's see where that sits, because there's no justice in that. And the fact that it took you 45 minutes to figure out that somebody ran all four wheels off the track when we have GPS monitors to the thousandths of a second, and we have all this technology that tells you where everybody is, and we have all the simulation data that tells, regardless of what tire is being on the car, where the actual race pace and all this other stuff is, we can't get the basics right. We can't figure out if a car stayed on the track or not. That's really bad. Two, how the hell do you screw up the timing? I don't know if there's weird radio waves or something going over that Bahrain circuit, but somebody's got to do an audit of something, because that just can't happen. I mean, this is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport, and in terms of timing, you lost out to IndyCar this weekend, and that's saying something. Woo. Oh yeah, and then there was the Sainz grid drop that didn't happen because he served his 10-second penalty, and then they had to recall that document. And never mind the fact that it took, for the George Russell thing, which was the only thing anybody really cared about. No, with all due respect to Nico Hulkenberg getting disqualified, yeah, that needs to happen. I get that. That's part of the process. Understood. Why you waited until the last document to finally address the George Russell thing is maddening. Like, just put that decision out. That's what everybody was waiting for. Instead, you're clicking on social media. You're clicking the FIA site. The bots are in front of the site. How the bots get the document before the website posts it is another thing. What are we doing? Get better. For the love of God, get better. Stop firing qualified people and get better. Yow.
Whew. Good Andy rant.
I figured it was going to be a slow burn, and then once we got going, it snowballed. All right, we'll move into analysis paralysis. Cody, I'll let you go first.
My analysis paralysis, I guess, goes to the stewards, in a sense, because why did we have a full safety car in this race? Called out the safety car, and I'm like, ooh, somebody crashed. And even the commentators were like, okay, I don't think we've got anybody off the track. All teams crashed. Is this for debris? Okay, what debris? Where? Okay, I see a little bit of debris there, but it's kind of off the racing line. Why are we doing this? Shouldn't this be a virtual safety car? It's like the same equivalent. Like, this could have been a meeting. This could have been the virtual safety car. Yeah, if they're just calling it for the clearing of debris, and it might have been debris that was caused by that Yuki Tsunoda collision, because we did see in the replays that a lot of stuff come off the car in a turn, pretty much on the racing line. But what's confusing to me is the field wasn't like super far apart. This is a pretty long circuit. Like, you could have done a virtual safety car. I'm sure you would have had enough of a gap over a couple laps to get all the stuff you needed to cleaned up. And you waited several laps after the debris was there to call the safety car anyway. So it's like if it really was that big a deal, we could have really run into a similar situation to what we saw in Qatar last year, where, we were thinking that there should have been intervention, and then there wasn't until two drivers already got screwed by the debris. So yeah, just the combination of waiting a while before you intervened and then choosing to really, really, really intervene with a safety car and bring everyone back up together again was just a really weird decision.
Yeah. Pick one. The fact that you put a safety car out isn't bad as long as it's consistent. And when it's maddeningly inconsistent, this is what you get. This is why you're here yet again. Shocking as it may be. My analysis paralysis, I'm just going to let Lewis Hamilton sum this one up for Ferrari. This tire sucks. And the fact that it got broadcast was even better. Like somebody had to type into the graphic thing, this tire sucks. Lewis, I love the wits. It only would have been better had he said it in Italian. That would have been even better.
That would have been great. I am happy though that he doesn't seem to feel any need to conform to Ferrari in any way. He's acting the same way that he acted at Mercedes, where he's going to tell the team how he really thinks. We kind of thought in that first race in Melbourne that maybe he was trying to be a little nice to the team and be like, okay, like this is the information I want to hear. Like, please do this for me. Now it's straight up, this tire sucks. Like we're going to tell you how it is, and we're going to make it better that way.
The honeymoon is over. It's time to go, and Lewis wants to go. I do see the beginnings of Ferrari actually getting some stuff right, though. That race pace was actually pretty good for them. So if that is a harbinger of things to come, we may see more of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc in the mix for sure. As for the dark horse of the day, I love the fact that we've got different people here, and that's just that's good. Like that, this is good for the sport of Formula One. Cody, what you got here?
I've got Pierre Gasly, because Alpine not having scored any points in the first three races coming to this weekend, I didn't really have high hopes, and then somehow Gasly really nails the qualifying. And a lot of times we see a driver in one of these midfield teams really nail qualifying, be above where we think they should be, and then they kind of sink back throughout the race. But no, Gasly still scored really good points. It was racing Max Verstappen for sixth place up to the last lap. So, great performance from Gasly. Great turnaround from Alpine in general, because Jack Doohan also qualified pretty well. Unfortunately, didn't really have the race finish to show for it, but it does show that they are on the up and up.
Yep. My dark horse is going to go out to Haas F1. It feels like they're doing this with smoke and mirrors. I don't know. They don't have particularly great qualifying pace. The race pace comes and goes, but when it comes, it's there. And Oliver Behrman is an overtake. Figured out how to overtake in Formula One, that's for sure. And lo and behold, Esteban Ocon, that was the quietest P8 I can ever remember. But they're up and all of a sudden there they are, and they're in P5 in the constructors, and it's on merit, and good for them. I think one of the feel good stories of the year. I think I even said in one of my group chats, this could be the start of an Io Korematsu book as to how to take a team from the back to the front with no budget. Because wow, I'm impressed. Let's put it that way.
Agreed.
All right, so we will now turn to the driver of the day. We've got good candidates here. The fan vote was for Lewis Hamilton. I kind of understand why. I mean, I don't know. The fan vote, because he's Lewis Hamilton, and that's fine. But Cody, what you got here?
So, I definitely think Oscar Piastri, fantastic candidate. I think he drove the race great. Being out in front, though, he pretty much just had to do what you do in the clean air, and driving away from the field, that takes some skill for sure. However, I feel like George Russell really had to work for it today. This weekend, really, in general.
Yeah.
I mean, he put the Mercedes on the front row. We thought for a moment he might have even had it on pole. That it was pretty amazing considering just how strong the McLaren is right now. And he managed to hold on to P2 despite systems on his car failing, despite the efforts of Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, especially at the end there, who had very, very strong pace, and he still managed to bring it home in P2. As I said earlier, he is very consistent to start off the season here. I think he's had, a third, fourth, third, and second, something like that.
Yeah.
So, very, very strong performances from him. I'm sure he's going to get a race win at some point this season. Just has to get it on a weekend where Mercedes gets one of those we nailed it weekends. But yeah, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, particularly with the fact that he drugged that car in qualifying. I did not see that coming. I figured this was going to be an easy as you please McLaren 1-2, maybe Russell in third. But the fact that he got as close to Piastri as it was, and I'm watching the timing, and then you have the moment, like, this is the same thing I literally said, this is the same thing Max pulled last week, and here we go again. And is this going to happen again? And then Lando does his thing, and then he's only sixth, and he didn't move, and I'm like, Oscar, you got to bring this home, and luckily he did. But my driver of the day is paging Dr. Piastri. I always compare this guy to an ER doctor who's going to save your life. That's the mentality. Nothing flaps this guy. And he's very definitive in the calls that he makes. I'm definitely getting a lot of Mika Hakkinen vibes, and I understand why this guy was as coveted as he was. And now he's showing it. And this could be the start of something for this guy. And his championship is definitely confirmed. He is in the fight. He's going to be in the fight probably to the end of the season. All right, so we will move on to our predictions. If you happen to listen to our preview, we had Lando Norris doing very well. That kind of screwed up all of our predictions. So our podium, even though, Cody, you got all the right people, they were not in the right order. But at least you scored points. You get the pole time, you get the fastest lap time because you were slower than me. I went way. I wanted to see if we could go away that fast in Bahrain. On me there. I did not score any points. We didn't even do a prop bet, which is probably something we should probably work on next time. So that means that we are now tied 2-2 in the predictions game over the course of the season. So I've got a little bit of work to do, and we'll try to put the research hats together and come up with some better predictions next time. All right, and if you thought that you're done with us, no, you're not, because we're leg 3 of our triple header. We now go to Saudi Arabia. It's the track with the lots of twists and turns, and if it wasn't in Saudi Arabia, I would probably love it a lot more than I do, but that's just kind of what it is. But we will get into all that. Expect a preview episode from us on Wednesday, and then again a review of the Saudi Arabian GP. What is the next twist and turn in this championship? Does Oscar Piastri overtake Lando for P1 in the drivers? We will have to see. That's why we're all here. So come on back. We'll get into it. But as always, it's for Cody. It's been Andy. As always, folks, may all your laps be fast.